dog? What's wrong with you?
You want me to do that high octave too?
Dude, what happened?
That dog does not want to be held. Avenged Sevenfold. Let's be honest. Love them or hate them, you can't deny their impact on modern metal. Full disclosure, I was never really a diehard fan, but I've always had a ton of respect for them. I remember back in the metalcore days, there just weren't that many bands with next level lead guitar players. We were just coming out of the new metal era, and lead guitar was starting to make a comeback, and then you had Sinister Gate, who was phenomenal. He had this insane style that was like Marty Friedman meets Danny Elfman, and it was 100% his own. As a band, they wrote real songs, had incredible musicianship, and they did whatever the hell they wanted, meaning they were not afraid to just totally change up their sound. I always thought the hate they got was unwarranted, but I guess that's just what happens when a band gets massive. Today I'm going to watch the making of their self-titled album. I've never seen this documentary before, so you're going to see my 100% unfiltered reaction. I'm genuinely curious to see what excellence looks like in their world, because there's no substitute for seeing how pros do it at the top level in real life. How are you going to know what the standards are if you never see it for yourself? For those of you who don't know me, I'm Eyal Levi, CEO of URM Academy. I've been a producer and a guitarist in my band Doth since 1999, and I've been obsessed with this stuff for way longer than that. Let's get into it.
Hey kids, what's going on? We're at Avenged Sevenfold headquarters right now. Mr. Zachy V, Mr. Sinister G. This place is it's become our home. So yeah, we're totally in the middle of making this album, and it's just been absolutely crazy. It's gonna get crazier. So this is it, big blue building.
I always find it fascinating when bands this size have a headquarters. I'm always curious as to what they all have in there. I don't know if you've ever seen video of the Metallica headquarters. Some impressive stuff. I think Trivium has one as well. I've heard Rammstein too. It's just interesting when bands get to this level, what their basically office is like, the band office, because, you know, it's a big business at that point.
The clarinet stuff.
See, I'm making my airtime.
Did I hear someone talking about clarinet stuff? That's cool. Organs are a really cool sound, and they actually fit really well with metal.
Critical Acclaim was the song that was probably one of the first ones that we'd written for this album.
First song we had an idea for, and it was just completely mapped out in its entirety before we even wrote any riffs or anything, so it was definitely a departure from how we usually do it.
Hold on. That's interesting. So they mapped out the entire song before they wrote any riffs for it. It had to be written in some way. There had to be some music pre-existing before they wrote any riffs to it. Curious.
So we wanted to make a song that was sort of like very riff-driven, very simple. So I think I remember picking up some guitar and just laying down this simple
There's something to be said for really simple riffs that are just catchy. Another version of this type of riff that I think we all know, the Psychosocial verse riff by Slipknot. Not exactly the same vibe, but there are these riffs that, or Walk by Pantera, that's another one. There are these riffs that are just so simple, but they just get stuck in your head. This kind of sounds like one of those.
Matt saw the demo all along and knew how it would turn out, but it wasn't until we got in the studio and started adding layers and just making it huge and really working on the lyrics. It was one of my first times really collaborating with him on lyrics, and we just wanted to get a really good message across.
This is a new way of working for them, and obviously they're hesitant because if you've built a band up or there's a certain way that things are done in your band, you might be a little skeptical about changing it up because that's just human nature. But really, really successful bands are open to continually evolving. It was especially true in that Cannibal Corpse documentary where you saw that multiple members were writing to their strengths and then the band would work around their strengths and make a better song. And that seems to me like what they're doing here. And what's really cool to see is that a lot of these dudes, I mean, all these dudes are really, really accomplished musicians. And this band is really big. Like they have a quote unquote formula they could follow and be fine, but they're choosing not to. They're still changing it up. So props. He's a great guitar player. One thing that I've always really liked about him is he's got really interesting note choices.
Right there.
Notice this right here. There's multiple ways to mute when you're in the studio, but guitar is just a noisemaker. You gotta tame it. I know some players who will not use any sort of muting whatsoever when they're playing because they feel like it's a pride thing, but I think that's just really stupid. It's important to mute wherever you can. Like, I would put a piece of foam right here. This is a bar, it seems like. I would put foam on the springs back there. If it was a fixed bridge, I would put, if possible, foam behind the bridge if there's room. And then also try to mute strings you're not playing. That's obviously what he's doing here. It just makes for cleaner takes.
I was like, well, we have this song, Critical Acclaim, and it's, you know, it's grooving, but the chorus just isn't anything to be really desired.
In this record, throughout the whole thing, we wanted to bring a lot of the live elements that we have of everyone singing.
Everyone has a great voice in the band, so we decided to split all the backup parts and shit like that amongst ourselves rather than just having Matt sing everything.
It's cool that they do that because oftentimes when you see a band that does a lot of harmonies live, they're doing that because they can't clone their singer. Other people will do harmonies so that they get the harmonies in there. It's cool that these guys are letting everybody sing. And you know how rare it is for a band to have multiple members who are good singers? That's just, it's not very normal. But you can definitely think of some really famous bands who have multiple members that are good singers. It's just not a common thing.
When we were demoing the song, the Rev sang the vocal melody to the chorus.
And the Rev had this very simple chorus with a couple chords, which is the chorus you hear today, and he's all letting me lay it down.
When it came time to actually track it, it was definitely an element that we wanted to have in the song was the Rev coming up in the chorus, something that we haven't done before.
He laid it down, sang this thing, and I was like, dude, you sound awesome singing it. You should sing the chorus.
Wow. So not only was he a badass drummer, but he could belt it too. Oftentimes when you get players that are in technical metal, they'll get really, really fast, but then there's like this power or groove element that's missing. And so when they do fills like he just did with the cymbals and the double kick, like it won't maintain the groove. And what I'm hearing right here is the groove just keeps going even when he did something a little bit showier. That means he was really great.
Almost Easy was a song that the Rev came to the garage with. He started playing this guitar that we just didn't know what he was doing there yet. We were listening to it, we were kind of smiling, you know, like, where's this going?
And when you see the drummer play the song, it doesn't really come across as great as it could be. You know, he's like, oh, I can do that riff so good, and just imagine it. Brian refused to play it. He just refused to play it. He didn't like it. He thought it was cheesy, and at the time it did sound a little cheesy because it was just, you know, one note.
And then as soon as he was finished, he started putting on this drum beat. In the verses, he went to this really cool, it's almost like a Latin drum beat, but very metal at the same time. It was very different from what we were expecting.
Almost Easy kind of goes more for the shredding, aggressive vibe, like kind of an old school vibe. Has a lot of new contemporary flavor to it, throwing in shit like double ride.
You're seeing the exact same thing as with the first song. The drummer is presenting a song with guitar riffs, and he's not a guitar player. And of course, they're skeptical, and they're being honest that they're skeptical, which I appreciate, but they're still seeing it through, and it ended up being a song on the record and pretty sick. Like, you have to understand if your band members are presenting something and they're presenting it to you on an instrument that's not what they're great at, you have to kind of try and imagine what it could be, and they're giving it to you so that you can then help them take it to the next level. Actually, if you look at the Meshuggah reaction I did, their drummer learned how to do all kinds of digital editing to guitar parts so that when he presented the parts to his band members, they would already kind of sound like riffs. It's really, really helpful to give your band members something that requires less imagination, but I really admire that these guys are seeing the ideas through.
There's a few parts in that song that we tried that have never been done by us, like the incorporation of using extreme sub bass.
We got our buddy J.E., hip-hop producer, actually, to come in and do some 808 blasts, and he made all those, and it came out really great. We just heard those a couple weeks ago for the first time.
I appreciate that they're adding new elements. Sub bass works really, really well with metal if the mixer knows what they're doing.
I was like, you know that chromatic scale when you pull down a slot machine? I was like, that'd be pretty fucking sick as a riff. Zachy came back with a full-on chromatic scale.
Like,
You know, he took the idea and it was awesome. He sent us this demo of it. We're like, yeah, that's perfect. That's really cool. The guitar solo, we were actually lifting weights, working out, and I was like, dude, you know what'd be cool in the beginning of the record would be if you just shredded over something and you didn't even really, it really didn't even have any notes. You're just doing a motif of like a over and over and over.
Okay. And the solo is the hardest solo to play because it's all picked. It may sound like it's something else, but it's all picked. It's all those fast, ridiculous triplets, and I don't know how I'm going to play it live, but we'll figure it out.
I'm getting the vibe that their singer is kind of a visionary in the band, kind of like the band's internal producer. Also, I'm not surprised that these guys know their music theory.
So that's how Scream came about. We didn't want it to be like, oh, here's a grooving part and we're going to ruin it with a fast part. Kept the whole thing grooving, the whole thing's the same tempo, and it just always makes you bop your head. You'll never hear a part in that song where you don't just want to go like this.
Once again, a lot of vision. They knew exactly what they were going for on that song, exactly what they wanted the reaction to be, and didn't allow anything into the song that didn't fit with that vision. I really do respect that.
He had this pre-chorus and then this chorus, but the pre-chorus was our chorus now. Won't question why so many have died. That whole part was his pre-chorus, and me and the Rev looked at each other, we're like, dude, that can't be a pre-chorus. That's like a chorus. There's like closure in that.
That's an important note right there. They had a pre-existing structure where they had a pre-chorus and a chorus, and then in the moment they realized that their pre-chorus was actually the chorus. And these are things that you realize only once you're like well into the song, and it's important to be able to recognize that and be flexible enough to make the change for whatever makes the song better. If you're not willing to do that, you're basically going to be selling yourself short on how good your songs can be. You got to be willing to completely scrap parts or take parts that you thought were only going to happen at the end, make that the chorus. Like, whatever you got to do, you need to be open for those changes, because oftentimes those little changes are what make the song go from good or okay to great. So contrary to some belief, you don't need to be in the room with your cabinet to get feedback. You can do it in the control room too. You just have to turn the monitors up really, really loud and basically act as if they are your speaker cabinet. It sounds different. Definitely the feedback you get in a control room has kind of a control room kind of sound. It doesn't sound the same, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I'm just saying you can do it if you turn up loud enough.
It's kind of a hip-hop-ish type of really heavy, subtle groove parts, like in the verse.
Lenny Castro laid down some amazing percussion on that kind of stuff, and which really just put the whole song in the pocket.
One thing I'm noticing here too, which is really, really cool, if you watch the Igor reaction, is similar. There are a lot of session players on this. They've had the orchestra, they've had someone come in doing all kinds of electronics, they had that female vocalist, now they have a percussionist. It's cool that they're actually getting real musicians to do all this stuff instead of just programming it all.
We laid down some great strings that are just really accentuated type stuff, that just really help with the groove.
We really wanted to have strings put in the verses, a really answer and call thing to the vocal line and to the riff.
We wanted to bring, for the lead part, bring in strings instead of guitars. So we thought that would add like an Avenged Sevenfold vibe to it.
and I wanted to mix it with violins and give it kind of an Alanis Morissette, uninvited type of vibe.
It was just great that these guys came in to help out and make it so that we got this all done in the amount of time we had to do it.
I think that everything that we laid down on that song just completely helps that groove out so much.
Shadows wrote some amazing lyrics that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Chorus, love the chorus. I actually re-sang the song like 3 times just to be completely happy with it. You know, it was kind of one of those things where I just had to keep working on the vocals to get them where I wanted them.
You often hear about people nailing things on the first take or like on the 99th take, but you really have to go as long as it takes for you to actually be happy with it, or for you to get the performance where it's at its like potential. Sometimes that takes redoing a song. This happens with drummers often. The first 2 songs you track on an album are kind of a warm-up, and there's been several times where I'll record a drummer, get to the end, and if we have some extra time, we'll redo the first 2 songs because they were playing better by the 3rd song, by the 4th song, by the 5th song. They're playing their best by like songs 9, 8, and 10, and so they can do way better than they did on the first 2 songs we tracked. So, and I'm sure with Avenged Sevenfold, there was enough of a budget to do things as many times as necessary. But it's good that he redid the song 3 times. That's a lot for vocals.
On a funny note of the song, a lot of the stuff that was written by the Rev, the stuff he written on guitar was actually very awesome, but it was about me and Sin's worst nightmare because anytime a drummer writes on a guitar, he makes up notes that are pretty much unheard of to an average guitarist.
That is absolutely true. This also has happened as a result of people writing on Guitar Pro and then not actually learning the parts before going to the studio and then realizing that what they wrote on Guitar Pro, it like is not playable, doesn't exist in reality. This also happens when guitar players who have never played drums before try to program drums for a drummer. You get some Dr. Octopus parts where they need multiple more limbs to be able to pull it off. And by the same token, when you have a non-guitar player writing guitar parts, you can often get some things that are just not feasible. However, you'll get stuff that you didn't think of because someone who doesn't think of the instrument like an instrumentalist, they're just thinking like a writer, is giving you the idea. And if you can translate that into something even better, then you'll have something really unique.
So it just kind of pushed me to learn this new style, I know Sin used some cool effects on the solo too.
That was cool. What the hell's going on there? That was a nice delay, but like, I wonder what that tone is. It sounds great.
This is where all the bullshit on the album happens. Low-end bullshit that just fucks with your ear. Makes you really sad. Sometimes the brown note.
So it looks like they're working in multiple rooms, which is definitely very efficient. Looks like everything we've been seeing so far is in the main control room, and they're actually tracking bass in another room at the same time. Smart. Good use of time.
How should we approach this song? It wasn't really coming together. A lot of songs were passing it up and growing. This one was kind of staying stagnant between verse and just, we didn't really know what we wanted to do, but everything we were kind of adding to this thing created this vibe. So we finally one day asked ourselves, what does this song remind you of? What do you think of when you're writing this song? And we came up with a flying carpet ride. We were like, this is a flying carpet ride. And as we kind of went along, which happened much faster after that, we just realized it's much more than a flying carpet ride. It's like being on acid at Disneyland.
So they were like, well, let's like do like the electric parade in Disneyland when you're on acid.
Cartoon voice.
We had Jamie lay down the piano on it and worked his butt off on it and just get that thing perfect.
Just did all this kind of classical-esque type stuff.
Then we're gonna change the whole vibe. We're going to this pirate type.
Some of my favorite just nuanced type guitar work.
I like that they're not afraid to experiment. That's really cool.
We wanted to have a song that just had a real religious choir to it.
Yeah, so the singers in the choir come in and they're really great to work with because you can say, here's the parts to sing and do it right away and get an attitude and get an approach that you want. And then if you try new things and try adding something, they're really quick about doing it and learning it. The added dimension of that many voices on a track behind Matt's amazing singing. Some of the choir was just going, man, how does he sing like that? It's so great.
You know, you can recreate a choir by tracking the same person multiple times. That's like some way that people will recreate gang vocals by just screaming into the mic multiple times, like 30 times. And, you know, you can put that together and it can kind of sound like gang vocals or like a choir. But something different happens when there's multiple people in the room doing it at the same time that is really, really hard to recreate by just recording the same person over and over and over and over, or the same 3 people like 9 times each. Something different happens when they're all singing into the same microphone at the same time.
It's just a great vibing song. It's just a happy song. It puts you in a good place, and we auto-tuned the shit out of it.
And while Matt was in this very room doing the vocals for that song, I had this brilliant idea, which you might hate me for later, to get a little festive with the auto-tune.
It's something that we've always really liked, you know, and we never heard it in any rock music. So we really wanted to try it out, and we actually all fell in love with it.
We took the vocals and we hard auto-tuned them so that you can hear the actual notes, you know. And we just thought that it called for it to make the song, you know, unique and try something we'd never really done before. And it came out really cool.
They have the balls to admit that they use a heavy amount of autotune on the song. It sounds to me like they did it in the artistic way to where it sounds robotic. But I mean, this is in the metal scene, even though they were arguably more like of a pop metal band or whatever you want to call it, like they were huge. Still, it's within the world of metal. Metal has quote unquote rules. And one of the things that, at least in that era, and judging by comments online, still in this one, stuff like autotune can be controversial for some weird reason. And here they are just openly talking about it, saying that they used the shit out of it on this song and that they like how it came out. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. I really respect that they do whatever they want. They're not afraid to take chances, not afraid to change their sound. They do what they want.
Yeah, my heart, at least for the most part.
I'm Scott today. Hey, dog. What's wrong with you?
You want me to do that high octave too?
Dude, what happened?
That dog does not want to be held.
Jesus Christ.
So we did a lot of textures with banjo and acoustic guitars and just different flavors to make that chorus big.
It's a really cool sound having the banjo in there, especially with those chord changes. It's not what you would expect to hear out of a banjo.
We brought in, you know, pedal steel.
They're just not stopping with the session musicians. That's awesome. Pedal steel is really hard to play. I love that they brought someone in to do it rather than one of the guitar players who might not know how to do it too well attempting it.
He just blows me away because he's just so much tastier and so much more melodic than I could ever be. I'm sitting there trying to think of the best shit I can play, and this guy's just, you know, in La La Land going crazy. It's just absolutely phenomenal.
Sin plays it fucking flawlessly with such great feel. That's one of the things that I'll always be envious about. He plays with so much feel that he could play any style of music. You know, you can actually hear just everything that we're feeling coming across the way that he plays the notes and stuff, and I think that's really cool. And I think we really captured a lot of cool things and tried a lot of new things with that song, and I think you're probably gonna hate it. So fuck you. Just kidding.
I like that. I think you're going to hate it, so fuck you, as opposed to I think you're going to hate it, so I'm too scared to release it. I like that a lot.
We were a little bit subdued during our writing process with the whole city life. The Rev found out for himself. He kind of went AWOL for a little bit to lock himself up and write.
Not right!
I did the same, you know, I just had to clear my head, and so I kind of disappeared for a while and just wrote on my own. And it kind of hit Matt a little bit after it hit us that he needed to get away from all the noise and create some noise of our own. So he came up with the idea of heading up to a cabin in Big Bear.
I appreciate that. Sometimes getting into the right state of mind to write a record is hard to do when you're living your life because it kind of needs to be all consuming. There's a lot of it that you can do as part of a routine, especially if you have a job or you have kids. But even if this is your main job, you still have a real life to contend with. And it's tough to, spend 24/7 for a few months only thinking about the record, which is what happens when you start writing. You can get really, really obsessed with it. And so I appreciate that multiple band members are just going, not exactly AWOL, but AWOL, so that they can go into their own little writing cave and emerge with ideas to bring back to the band, and the band works together. And then I also like that the band themselves went on a writing retreat so they could get away from all the distractions. That is super important. Distractions are the number one killer of productivity and output in modern life. Look, I would say even more than procrastination, even more than having other responsibilities. I think if we were to eliminate distractions, we would get so much done, regardless of what else we have going on.
We've come a long way and achieved some success, and coming to Huntington Beach and writing isn't necessarily the same as it was several years ago.
What he just said, they've had a little bit of success at this point. Writing in Huntington Beach just isn't what it used to be. Probably getting a little stale or routine for them. I don't know how many of you follow comedians, but there's something that happens when comedians start to get really famous is you notice that they start talking about airports and meeting celebrities a lot. And that's when the audience that helped them get big starts to check out a little bit because it's no longer relatable. And I think that with a band that's already super successful, they already have this headquarters, they have this way of doing things. Anything can become routine. And so taking the opportunity to get a new life experience and to get out of that routine is really, really smart, or your output is going to get super unrelatable because your life is unrelatable.
Sinister and the Rev had this band called Pinkly Smooth.
It's just primarily goblin metal, heavily Danny Elfman influenced, as well as Oingo Boingo.
When Jimmy decided he was going to write on this record, he didn't know how to write Avenged Sevenfold style stuff. And we're like, you don't understand, we are Avenged Sevenfold, we can write whatever we want.
Totally inspired by all the crazy shit that we listen to, all of us, ranging from bands like Mr. Bungle and The Residents.
That's another one of those magical things that as it just progressed in the studio, such as the string arrangements, the orchestral arrangements brought to you by many members of Oingo Boingo.
For those of you who don't know, Oingo Boingo is Danny Elfman's band.
And I said, yeah, let me involve Steve Bartek, the guitar player from Boingo, and get him to do some horns and stuff.
So we're like, Steve Bartek, fuck yeah. Mark Band, Steve Bartek, the dudes from Oingo Boingo who do all Danny Elfman's stuff are gonna work on this song with us.
That's legit. The Oingo Boingo story is actually really cool because Danny Elfman and his band kind of lived the dream. The band got semi-popular, and then Danny Elfman went on to become one of the most legendary soundtrack composers of all time. But band members also became his arrangers and orchestrators, so they're still kind of working together. It's super, super cool that they got those guys on this. That's like a dream.
I sang the main vocal.
Before the story begins, is it such a sin for me to keep what's mine until the end of time?
Jimmy singing the narrator part. We had a girl named Juliet come in and sing.
This straight up sounds like something from Nightmare Before Christmas or something.
Avenged Sevenfold are really great musicians, and they know what they want. They're producing their record themselves, which is an amazing accomplishment. So I'm really pleased to have been able to add a little extra something to their sound.
All right, so they're self-producing. That's what it seemed like. But this band doesn't sound like it needs a producer with that vocalist who is basically their producer. Okay, wow, that was seriously impressive. And my biggest takeaway from it isn't just the playing, which is obviously insane, but it's the clarity of vision and the intentionality behind every single decision that they made. You see them talking about arrangements, about lyrics, about what the songs mean, bringing in all kinds of session musicians, orchestral parts, and not being afraid to get weird. They weren't just writing riffs and piecing them together, they were crafting songs. This is exactly what I was talking about when I said that they helped move the genre forward. While a bunch of people were complaining that bands couldn't play anymore, here you had Avenged Sevenfold, which was the complete opposite, and they got massive for it. The biggest lesson here is for anyone with a home studio out there to not be afraid to be yourself and trust your weird ideas. Don't just copy other people's tones and methods and subscribe to what you read on forums because somebody said it's right. The thing that made Avenged Sevenfold stand out is their unique vision, and that's what you need to find. And if you want to see exactly how other world-class artists like Meshuggah, Gojira, and Lamb of God build their tracks from the ground up with all the raw multi-tracks so you can mix them yourself, you've got to check out Nail the Mix. It's the ultimate look behind the curtain. Link in the description. All right, so what did you all think of this stock? What's your biggest takeaway? Let me know in the comments, and as always, if you like this, subscribe, like, share. We'll see you next time.